Welcome, dear viewers, to a new episode of Dialogue Horizon. In this episode, we will cover as much as we can on the economic and financial situation and some of the important decisions taken by the Minister of Finance. That's why we are happy to host our friend Dr. Abdelhalim Taiman. Abdelhalim Taiman, apart from being assistant president of National Party, but also he is a member in the committee of Freedom and Forces and Change Economic Committee. So welcome Dr. Abdelhalim Taiman to this episode. We hope we will cover as much as we can in this important episode. So my first question, Dr. Abdelhalim Taiman, is last Tuesday, the government or the Minister of Finance took a decision to made a big reduction in the price of the gasoline and diesel. Gasoline, in Sudan we call it benzene, but the gasoline about 25%, which is a sizable reduction, whereas about 1.8% only on the diesel. And this was preceded by another reduction in the price maybe 2 months ago. This is a Minister of Energy, not Minister of Finance. So to what do you think you attribute this unexpected reduction of the fuel in general, and the big difference in the reduction itself, about 25% on the gasoline, which is benzene, and only less than 2% on the diesel. So to what do you attribute this unexpected reduction?
Thank you for having me. Good day for dear viewers. We all know after economic reforms and lifting of the subsidies from the energy or the oil sector, the prices continued rising despite that there are some times where the international prices decreased. But in Sudan, the trend was steadily increasing to the extent that before this reduction, the price of liter is 1.3 for the benzene, for example, which is the highest in the world. It's more expensive than the liter of benzene in the United States or the United Arab Emirates. Whereas the income of the Sudanese citizen may be 1/5 or 1/7 of the income of the citizen in UAE. So this is completely unacceptable. But there is a question people may continually are asking, what are the reasons? The reason is that the government is putting a lot of charges on the oil sector, and it is using the pocket of the citizen as a revenue. And to the extent that I believe because this has slowed the supply, because this has affected the cost of production and transportation, and consequently it affected the supply and and service sector, for example. So the government has no option, because by putting excessive charges on the oil, the fees, the production cost has risen to a very high levels, and even some products became incompetitive compared to those who that are imported from outside. At the same time, it affected also the agricultural sector, and all sectors have been affected by this increased prices. In addition, the transportation sector, for example, also was hardly hit by these increases, to the extent that people are talking about recession in this sector. So the government, by putting excessive and continued fees, instead of increasing the revenues, what happened is the reverse, that the revenues declined because of the drop that happened in the supply from one side and for the demand from the other side. So maybe this is the main reason. Also, we can expect that because also we know that this month there is a schedule of protests that were declared beginning from the 6th of October to the end of the month. So also political reasons may be also behind this decision, because also this became one of the areas where the people seeing that they cannot afford these prices or any increases. So maybe the political reason is also behind this.
So you believe it is something but still the decision to lift subsidies is there. Does this reduction mean that the government is back to subsidy? At this prices, do you think this is government is now subsidizing the fuel, or is still within the range of the profit of the government, maybe, or the revenues of the government?
No, the government has stopped subsidizing
completely
oil sector. But I'm talking about the equivalent price after even lifting the subsidies.
So this
because the government is putting a lot of fees and a lot of charges on the oil. But if you assume that the oil is imported without any fees, it will be more than 45% of this current price. It should be less than the price that was prevailing by 45%. And also some countries, like for example the United States. The United States President has a proposal to the Senate in order to exclude the oil sector from taxes, so that people can use cheap energy in order to produce and help the economy to grow. So this is not the time that you put excessive pressure on the price of oil, because our economy is slowing down, and we are almost have an economic problem that all the macroeconomic fundamentals are showing very bad figures. So this is not the correct policy. So I think reduction of these oil prices should go further. But there is also another important notice, because they reduce the price of benzene, and the reduction of the price of the gasoline is very trivial.
Very trivial, very small.
Yes, they should have reduced the price of gasoline, because this has the greater impact on the livelihood of the citizens.
Which was the diesel?
The diesel,
yes,
yeah.
Yes.
This is used in production, in agriculture, in industry,
transportation.
And all transportation. So I think still the effect may be very limited, because what is needed is reducing the price of gasoline, which is has a better or direct impact on the livelihood of the citizens, and even the figures, the consumption of gasoline far exceeds maybe 3 times the consumption of benzene. So as if the government is keeping 75% of its fees still there, and just trying to use this very limited reduction in only 25% of the imports, which is benzene. They reduce the fees in the benzene sector. And this may be also very tricky because they should have lifted the gasoline, which constitutes 75% of the oil imports.
And because not only this, Dr. Abdul Halim Teman, this minimal reduction in the diesel, only 1.8%, very minimal, it will not have a good effect on the prices of the commodities and the cost of production.
Yes.
Cost of production in agriculture, for example.
Yes.
It depends completely on diesel. Transportation of from the port to the inland this will not be affected, and even the transportation in cities it will not have any effect on the prices of the commodities. But maybe emotionally it will have some effect on the people when they go to the fuel station and they fill their cars with maybe something emotional. But you are saying that 1.8 is trivial, is not
Yes.
a big reduction.
Yes. And there is also another important issue, because normally in economic reforms, governments normally try to protect important sectors that contribute to the GDP. For example, the agricultural sector. After lifting subsidies, for example, you should protect this sector by, for example, giving farmers some form of incentives to compensate or offset the increase that happens in their cost of production.
Yes.
So that our products will be somewhat competitive. But when you leave this sector without any protection or incentives, it will affect the competitiveness of our agricultural products internationally at the time that we are witnessing severe competition in our products from neighboring countries, and Sudan is also known for its bad logistics and infrastructure. If all this is added together, so we will face a big problem in competing with similar products from neighboring countries. Many countries, in order to avoid this, they give, for example, 10% of net production, for example. If a farmer, for example, produce, for example, 100 sacks of wheat, then you should give him an incentive as 10% of the total value of his product. He can use this in order to reduce the price, because it is unacceptable that the government takes all these proceeds and all these revenues that it gains from lifting the subsidies and giving nothing out of this. At least they should reinvest or support at least 10% of this total amount can be directed in order to protect and try to help farmers and important sectors in order to grow and participate in the GDP.
But don't you think that just maybe it's a good decision, maybe it will have some good effect to some extent, but don't you think that it's unfortunately untimely? Untimely because yesterday or 2 days ago, maybe the OPEC decided to reduce the production of oil of its country, maybe by 2 million barrels per day, maybe, I'm not sure. But they decided to take this measure to reduce the production so that the prices will go up. So will the government go again and back to the high prices, or will it just tolerate this reduction in its budget and they pay more for the raw oil?
In general, when you lift subsidies, it means that you have liberalized trade in this sector.
The
for
trade
example.
and the pricing.
So normally and logically, the government should not intervene. It should be subjected to the market mechanisms. If international prices dropped, then
They have to drop the
yeah,
price.
our citizens should enjoy lower prices.
Yes.
But the government is what is doing is that during this drop in international prices, still we are paying these similar prices. This is not good. Prices should be revised because this commodity is liberalized, and it should reflect the current market, international market price, of course. Yeah, ups and downs.
So it can go up.
It can go up, it can go down.
No,
Yes.
people should not be, if maybe tomorrow or after 7 days they go back to the old prices.
But the trend is downward trend, that the current international
But
price trend.
after the reduction, which the decision was taken yesterday, even America is worried and is very concerned about this, and they try to put some pressure on the Saudi Arabia, especially because it is the biggest, one of the biggest oil producing countries. So they couldn't, but still they decided to reduce. But still the effect has, we have to remain, we wait and see
Yes.
what will happen. Okay, Dr. Abdul Halim Teban, we have a very important question about, this is a fact. Before the secession of the South, before the South succeeded, the production, the daily production of Sudan was hardly about 450,000 barrels a day. This is before secession, almost 500, let us say 500. After secession, it dropped to about 60,000, which is which something was very alarming. That is the reason. For that reason, the government decided to open imports of oil to the private sector by utilizing the export proceeds, their export proceeds. And many companies, they succeeded in, and they found profit, very profitable. Now, till this moment, fuel stations in the country, in cities, there is plenty of oil, plenty of fuel for people to buy, whether it's diesel or gasoline or benzene. So why the government did not go for exploration again of oil sector in the north? Why do you think this is due to the instability after secession? Because secession was on the 2011,
Yes.
almost 11 years.
Yes.
Nobody thought, the OECD regime or even the incumbent regimes, they did not think of inviting, like the Chinese living. So what people are asking, what is the reason for that? Why people, although many people, they say that the geologists and in the international community, they know that still the north has reserve of oil underground. So why in 11 years the government did not think of boosting this production by more explorations of oil?
This question is very important, but the question should be addressed for the period even before 2011. The period that Sudan has big revenues from oil. That was the optimal time the government should have reinvested the proceeds in oil. But after South Sudan secession, the economy was badly hit, and the exchange rate deteriorated, and the balance of payment has showed very bad. It has the exports compared to the imports was very, there's a big deficit, and all macroeconomic fundamentals were affected. And some people say that this triggered also the 2013 demonstrations, which was a pillar for the 2018 demonstrations.
Yes.
But concerning your question, we remember that during Dr. Hamdouk government, Sudan participated in Paris conference, and there was a very good plan submitted as part of the government plan to increase the production of oil. And you know, one of the most important things is that international finance, and you cannot finance exploration in Sudan, and Sudan was a heavily indebted country. But we think that in Paris conference opened a chance for Sudan, because there were pledges to forgive Sudan from a huge amount of its debt. That was a good chance for Sudan to refinance itself from international institutions. But after the 25th coup, all pledges were reversed. That is why you don't expect now any international financial institution to finance the oil sector. And by, for example, when you reduce your debt, it means that you will open the ceiling for new borrowing. And this is also is not possible. But if the reforms and the civilian government continued in its cooperation with the international community, that could have been possible.
The hardship on the people by high prices. So at this stage, I agree with you. Nobody will try to come and talk about investing. Not only this, about also, if you forgot, maybe I forgot, instabilities. The eruption of certain wars in different parts of near the oil fields. Yesterday, I think there is in one of the oil fields in Kordofan, some people protested. They stopped pumping the oil to the refineries. So maybe this is also another security and safety is very important.
Yes, security and safety, because the government is not controlling the country, and also we can also mention the legal vacuum now, because also internationally people are asking about transparency and a lot of indicators concerning any country. At this time, as you can see, there is no transparency. Nobody knows what the government is doing. There's
no government at
yeah,
least.
no parliament.
No government for,
no government,
for 1 year.
Yeah, no government. So all these things can be added to the negative signs of the country in the eye of the investor.
Investors, yes.
Yeah.
Investors are very careful and very concerned about this first. Then comes the infrastructure, comes the other things.
Yes.
But they are very much concerned, and they have zero tolerance on accepting a situation like this, very fragile situation. Not only investors, we ourselves are not.
Nobody knows anything about.
What will happen tomorrow? Yes.
Yeah, nobody knows about the country. Nobody has information. No information is disclosed to the citizens.
Yes.
Is there any corruption? There, people are talking about corruption. This is a very favorable condition for corruptors and for corruption. Still, there is no information. What is the government doing? There's no parliament, no disclosure of information. So all these things are real concerns for the international community. Yeah.
Adverse to any investment. Okay, let us go. This is very, very true and very, I agree with you. Let us go to another issue also. It's a sort of bleeding to the economy, the ailing economy. Already the economy is ailing, but also the lack of export and import policies and regulations. There are regulations, but regulations are being bypassed by corruption, like export of, for example, gold. Other like gum arabic. So the policies of export and imports, either policies are not enough, doing enough, they need some amendments or change, radical change, or there are certain clauses, but nobody, because of corruption, nobody is applying it. So this is a very important issue. The export, now we are losing, Sudan is losing a lot of money in the Bank of Sudan couldn't control it because Bank of Sudan they tried many times to put condition on the export proceeds. Everybody who export, but export proceeds has to be controlled by the. But still, people see loopholes and see weak areas through which they break any regulations. So what can you tell us about export and import policies and application of policies, the pragmatic application of policies, so that the country can benefit and the people can benefit of their resources?
Basically, any economy should have in its aims the basic aim of increasing its GDP. And of course, increasing the exports is very important. But as you know, the government, the current coup government, what are they? What they are doing is they are increasing the taxes and other fees. This has affected the cost of exports, and also, as you can see, there is a lot of protests and resentment from exporters because the government is now adopting a contractionary fiscal policy, and to show that in terms of science, that the exchange rate, for example, is stable, inflation is stable, but this has cost because, as you can see, the government now, in terms of the fiscal policies, they are reducing the government expenditure and they are increasing taxes and other fees. And the central bank also is controlling the money supply. So these two measures or policies can produce stability in inflation, can reduce inflation, or keep inflation without increasing, or and the exchange rate stability. But if this policy is wise or suitable for the case of Sudan, it's not. Because when you have an economy that is slowing, increasing unemployment, increasing poverty, and services, for example, in terms of poor services, for example, in the main sectors, health, education. This situation needs, for example, first the government should spend in these sectors and to improve the services for the citizens. It should expand or increase the expenditure in order to increase supplies and affect the demand, and by doing so increasing employment and job opportunities, and at the same time it will also reduce poverty. But what the government did, instead of going to expansionary fiscal policy to face or achieve these goals, they went to a contractionary fiscal policy in order to use the stable inflation and exchange rate in the framework of political propaganda. But this caused a lot of damage for the economy. It affected supply. Now industries, factories are reducing the workers. It affected also the service sector. The supply has reduced, decreased, and the demand also decreased. It brought about recession. This is why also it increased the cost of exports, and if you add to the problems of the exports, the risk that was associated with the port of Sudan after Trick has yes, after he closed the national road to Port Sudan. All these things created, in addition to 14 points or kind of fees that the exporter must satisfy in order to export. This affected, I don't have figures, and we need credible figures in terms of exports, but I think there was a large, considerable drop in the figure of exports this year. And it was also clear from what we are hearing from the exporters as their continuous complaint to the extent that they are going to boycott or enter into boycott from exporting.
The exporters, they are also complaining.
Yes, they are complaining because normally the exporters, they have, first of all, any businessman needs finance. Yeah. Now, the cost of finance is 30%. If this
very high.
Very high. At the same time, these exporters normally, previously, they can use this 30% is annually. If, for example, he borrowed money to support to use it in buying, for example, sesame, for example, for export previously, and because the port was at that time efficient and somewhat efficient, they can do 3 to 4 export cycles or trips. But after the closure, and because the port was notorious for regulations and other things, it is very difficult now to the most active exporter maybe can do 2 trips or cycles in a year. So how can you cover first 30% cost of finance, and second, you pay all these fees, and then compete similar products from other countries and make profit? This is impossible.
And failure to get your commodity to the port because the delay of 10,
yes.
15, this is
yeah.
It's another.
This is why we can see that these exporters are vulnerable this year to defaults. I hope this don't happen, but we expect that the private sector
they said that they will go bankrupt or they will go to default.
Yes, this is highly expected. So the government must be prepared also for such likely to happen problems.
Yeah. This is very gloomy picture, Dr. Halim Teman, about it. So you think that there are the regulations controlling the export and import are there, no problem about this. Bank of Sudan is also on top of this, but bad practices, starting from corruption down to the closure and the strikes of the main lifeline between Port Sudan and Khartoum. Now the flow is becoming erratic. Today, I think the truck owners and drivers are blocking the main line, the main road from Khartoum to Port Sudan because of the high toll. They pay a lot of money on their way to Port Sudan or back to Khartoum. So now we have a blocked lifeline from Khartoum to Port Sudan. Not this time, not by Tirik, but this time by the truck owners and truck drivers.
Yes.
This is a very sad situation.
Yes, yes.
So this is also not encouraging to export.
Yeah, it will add to the slowing of the cycle, as I said.
The cycle slows the cycle.
Yes, yes.
And you predicted that the default will,
yes,
sizable defaulters will come in the picture very soon.
Yeah, the government should reduce the cost of finance to exporters. They should also abolish some fees from exports, and I think at the same time they should also help improve the situation in the port.
They have to encourage exports, yes.
Yeah.
All countries, they encourage exports.
Yes.
So anyhow, okay, Dr. Halim Nas, we go on another issue also. Another issue is the wheat production and agriculture of wheat. Wheat, although wheat is not a cash product. We used to have cotton as a cash product in the Gadira area, and one of the grave mistakes, in my opinion, one of the bad big mistakes that the Gadira, which was producing a cash product, which is cotton as raw material, and from cotton, a lot of textile mills in Khartoum and different parts of Sudan, they grow huge spinning and weaving textile factories. Now all of them are down, collapsed, and they shut down. All no, because of the reduction of the cotton, the area, at the expense of growing the wheat as cash, as consumable product. But still, people, the government saying that when they started growing wheat in the north or in Jazeera area, on the assumption that after a few years they will have self-satisfaction of the wheat. Whereas since they started growing, only the figures shown that only 12% or 17% of the consumption of wheat in bread or other products is covering only 12 or 17% of the consumption, the annual consumption of Sudan. The balance is imported from Ukraine, from different parts of the world. So it's still, does this mean that from the beginning that the decision to go for growing wheat and reducing the areas for cotton was it wrong from the beginning? Or why government also did not encourage farmers to grow wheat? Or on the contrary, they are putting hurdles, and now we have a lot of resentment from the growers of wheat by the government policies not buying their product first and putting some tax. Can you elaborate, tell us about this wheat in depth, this wheat business?
Okay. As you said, it is clear that the gap is very wide because we all know that Sudan imports almost 80% of its needs for wheat or consumption of wheat from
8%,
80%, yeah, from Russia and Ukraine. And as you know, this now tend to be a problem area.
Yes.
And so we are facing, not only we, but the whole world, it is facing shortage of essential commodities. But as you know, if you want to increase the production of wheat to in a strategic fashion, so that you will reach some time after some years to the local satisfaction of this product, it needs hard work and it needs clear strategies. It needs, for example, clear strategies that the farmer be part of this strategy and should be developed by a very detailed work that can bring about the ideas, the problems, and all this. But in Sudan, there is no strategy. The farmers continue to pay the price, and the government and the banks always they are just applying their standard rules or aims. They want to finance, but with zero risk. They want collateral, and that is all. This is a bank. That is why the farmers always hesitate about what to grow, because the government has no clear strategies before the season, during the season, after the season. I think we need to take care about agriculture. We need to take care about the farmers. We need to bring them and be part of the policies. We need stability in our policies. And you know, many countries they normally try to protect the farmers from any risks or losses. For the example, in the United States,
Yeah.
we remember when at times where the international prices drop below the cost, the government pays the difference and it buys all the products so that they give stability or guarantee stability
Yeah.
for the next season. This is not in
That's
Sudan.
not happening here.
Yeah, this
On
is
the
why
contrary.
people shift from wheat to cotton, from cotton to sesame. So this is chaos. The
There's
country
chaos.
should have the country should have a clear strategy in this area.
Okay, this is very sad. Although a decision was taken by the High Committee for food, the food security, they took a decision to grow 1 million fadan or acre of wheat this winter, which is now already we are right in the middle, start of the winter, and that this fund they have to raise or to earmark a fund for with a partnership with the farmers to grow 1 million acre for wheat, but it seems that till this moment nothing has been done, and already we started, the winter started and the season started, and nothing was done. On the contrary, there are some big conflict between the farmers, as you said, the farmer and the government. The government is not doing enough to encourage them to grow. Okay, let us pass to another important question before we conclude our episode. Everybody knows this is a very important question. Maybe this is in your domain. Everybody knows that Sudan is very rich and has resources, huge resources in minerals, underground minerals like gold, like iron, like copper, like magnesium, like chrome. Many. At least the important is gold. We have the gold, and you know that there is chaos in the gold production or digging there. They are there. They have national companies. They have individuals. We have big companies. So almost there is a kind of lack of coordination and control on the export of the minerals of the country. Although many countries, just in Africa, we say South Africa and Morocco. Morocco, they have the sulfur. They made full use of transforming this raw material by industries to valuable exports to the world, and they have a stable economy. So why Sudan is lacking? Although we have this resources. What's the reason for this?
Any country, in order to make economic growth, industry is core and very important, and factories should be built. And of course, when we talk about the minerals, these are very important in industry, and they should play an important role, especially in a country like Sudan, as you said, with diverse mineral resources. But these countries you mentioned, like South Africa and Morocco, they have stable strategies. In Sudan, for example, we suffer from a lot of problems. The traditional mining and the companies that are working in the area of mining, they are not investing a lot in laboratories, in experts. They are not bringing technicians from outside. In addition, the government is also not spending in research, for example, centers. There should be research centers in order to give detailed information about the reserves and information about each product. I think also one of the important issues is that we still export these products in terms of raw materials. So we need to make factories and in order to
add value.
You add value, yes, and this needs encouraging and bringing international investors in order to play this role. So these are things that are needed, but continuing exporting these products in raw material and giving this role to very limited companies, that they are not developing their business in a strategic way. I think the government needs to intervene and help in this area and try to copy the experience of South Africa and Morocco and Sudan. This is not difficult. In addition to smuggling and all these issues, there should be clear strategies that can put an end to all these current impractical practices, and put in state policies that can sustainable, that can make add value to the product, and that can also contribute in order to grow for this sector to
benefit.
Yes.
Okay, my last question, because now the episode is very important. It went very fast. I have about 2 minutes. In 2 minutes, just give me your idea about the Minister of Finance. You mentioned that the budget of 2023. Just tell us in 2 minutes, because your own person as an economist, what it will look like.
First of all, he talked only about some of the circular. He talked about the features of the budget and the aims, but he didn't mention exactly. We are waiting for the figures.
Actually, yes.
Yeah, and we want also, they said that they want to reduce poverty, they want to help economy grow, and these things are, according to the macroeconomic fundamentals, they are very difficult to achieve. For example, we are waiting to see the figures, how they are going to reduce poverty, how they are going to improve the services, for example, for the citizens, for example, because when you are talking in your aims about increasing or improving the services, we are talking here about health, education. But we know that a considerable portion of families now, they fail to register their children in school because they cannot afford these high fees. The government at the same time, they are reducing or decreasing the expenditure. So how can you decrease the government expenditure and you improve in health and education, which needs
so you have to wait and see.
Yes,
see the figures.
I think this will be a very, very, very difficult budget, and will be with a huge deficit, and I expect that the citizens will suffer a lot this coming quarter of the year. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Abdelhalim Tayman, for this hour. Thank you, dear viewers, for being with us in the last hour. We hope to see you next week in another episode of Dialogue Horizon. Bye.